Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Christopher and Sheila, for asking me to be here. I don't know, I'm sure I speak on behalf of everybody, but it's been absolutely amazing. I'm going to transport you to the front end, to the consumer world. I work for the Wool Room, which is a retailer. So I am dealing with the customer, the consumer, every day, almost every minute of my working life. And a little bit like Caroline, we have that interface with the consumer, online, phones, emails, live chat. So we are seeing and feeling what the consumer is saying about it. Before I start and sort of launch into telling you a little bit more about it, I just want to sort of put something to you. It's very apt that I've been given part of the graveyard slot when I'm going to talk about sleep. Because I know that our metabolic rate is sort of slowing down. We're feeling a little bit sleepy, even though as brilliant as Caroline was, it's always a bit more difficult to get going. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. First one is, what's your immediate thoughts? Give me a few buzzwords when I use the word wool. What do we think? Warm. So we think of warm? Yep. Natural. Pullovers. Yep. Sorry? Cozy. Okay, so warm, cozy. What else? Lanolin. Yep. Good, bad? Lanolin? Love it. Okay. Use it in the hand creams and beauty creams every day, probably. Those that do. Shearing, yeah. Expensive. Yeah. Expensive to buy? Yeah.
I'll go with itchy.
Who was that? Itchy. Brilliant. Yeah. Itchy and scratchy. Yeah, we all remember school jumpers. Challenging. So easy, difficult to care for. Yeah. Yeah. Hands up, how many people have shrunk a wool jumper? Oh, look at that. Okay? It's difficult to care for. Yeah? Twice, socks, everything. You don't get smelly wearing it. Absolutely. So, odorless. Yeah. Yeah. So those are just some of the challenges that we face and the challenges that the industry faces. So we've heard a lot about the sort of producer and what we can do at the sort of the back end in terms of hopefully producing better meat, better animals, better livelihood, better environment, better ecology, ecosystem, etc. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we sleep on, what we sleep under. Now, how many people in here know what they sleep under? Yeah? Do you know what you sleep under? About a third of everybody. Yeah? Does anybody know how long you spend in bed as a proportion of your life? Not long enough. I know, it's never long enough, is it? Teenagers far too long. Yeah? And when we get older, not enough, yeah? Anybody has a guess? How many years of your life on average? Okay, how many years?
25.
Very close. 26 years. We spend 26 years of our life in bed. Even those that maybe struggle to sleep. Yeah? How much focus do we give to that area of our home? What we sleep on, what we sleep under?
A lot.
Okay? I would say you are in the absolute minority.
Yes.
Yeah? So we think about probably more about what we're going to eat. We think about what we're going to sit on. We're going to think about a nice flat screen TV, particularly for the younger parts of the population. Yeah? The nice things, what gadgets we've got, what phones we operate.
You tend to upgrade as you're going through life.
You do.
It becomes more important
Correct.
to you.
Yeah. So that's the sort of world that I want to sort of talk about today. And it sort of ties into a little bit what Caroline said about thinking about what we're putting into us. But it's also the world that we live in. And one of our very first strap lines was live life as nature intended. And if I go back to a lot of what we've talked about, you think about Neanderthal, you think about beyond that, everything was used from the animal. So the carcass, the skin, the fleece would have been used to sleep on and used to sleep under. And how we've evolved, and we've evolved away from that. So, see if I can get this working. There we go. So I just want to sort of dwell a little bit on what the world today is really like. We're cash rich, we're time poor. How much time do we really focus on the things that should be mattering and that can change our lives? We're in a very, very disposable society. And fast fashion is at heart. We heard a little bit about that in some of the films. I was very privileged to, His Royal Highness Prince of Wales is actually patron of the campaign for wool, something that you may have seen in the press more recently because we had Wool Week, which is the big week. I'm delighted to say that he signed up for another 5 years to support the campaign for wool. And it's all about recognising the amazing miracle properties of wool and what it can do, whether it's fashion, whether it's homewares, whether it's indeed other uses as well. And, you know, there was a very strong section there about fast fashion, which was really, and Alex James, who's famous for Blur, is absolutely at the forefront of this and could not believe what he saw in terms of the documentary that he did, in terms of how much is going into landfill. I think the figure quoted in the film was 80%. It's probably not far wrong. Do we know, does anybody know how long polyester takes to decompose? 200 years? Probably a little bit less than that, but not far. 150 years. So for every garment or every polyester duvet that goes into landfill, yeah, and we change polyester duvets about every 3 years, yeah, go into landfill, that will take 150 years. Does anybody know how long wool takes to decompose? About a year, yeah. Yeah, so at end of life, yeah, natural product. Again, it talks a little bit about what we're talking about here, which is talk about the nutrients, sort of going back into the soil. It's nitrogen rich. So there's a lot of sort of major benefits. But I use that just as an example of thinking about fast fashion. Do we think about what we're buying, what we're wearing? Do we think about what we sleep under, what we sleep on? Yeah? How many people have got a synthetic base to their mattress? Memory foam's hugely popular. We probably have all heard of Tempur-Pedic. Yeah, done a great job in terms of advertising. You know, used by NASA. Yeah, it's filled with chemicals, flame retardants. Yeah, it's horrid. And this is the world we live in. This is the 26 years we are spending of our life, yeah, on things like that. So it's not just what we're putting in, it's what we're sleeping in around. A lot of the fibres we're using are largely derived from oil. And natural fibres are largely seen as premium. Wool. It is a premium fibre. It's expensive, yeah? Doesn't seem it when the farmer's paid only a few pounds per kilo, yeah? And that's part of our challenge. That's why I'm here. That's what we're trying, part of what we want to do. Increasing use of chemicals. We've talked a lot about chemicals to get greater outputs, lower prices. It's no different from what's going onto the land to producing fibres, yeah? The amount of pesticides that are used on cotton, I think it's estimated to be 3/4 of the world's pesticides go onto cotton. And yet every day we're buying what we think is a natural fibre, yeah, think about maybe organic cotton versus traditional cottons. These are sort of the choices that we've got to start, and it starts here really in starting to think about what we need to do. Growing pollution from these chemicals. Desire to live and sleep healthy, often through technological advances. You see lots of gadgets, don't you? Health apps, your phones now tell you how you're sleeping. Yeah, Fitbits tell us how active we're being, all tying into the gadgets that we're seeing every day. How many people sleep with a mobile phone next to their bed because they want to record their sleep? But actually it's horrendous. The blue light that's given out by mobile phones and by iPads and things, yeah, actually stops the brain from falling asleep. All of that sort of thing is preventing us, but actually there's some very, very simple solutions. Scant regard for the environment. Changes are often only driven by government legislation, but does the government really understand what's going on? No. I'm delighted that Joe Dawson, the original founder of the Wool Room, who's sitting back next to me back there, is here today because his vision was probably well ahead of its time. And this is what Joe thought. I wanted to set out to challenge the outdated way that the world saw wool, and hence why I asked the question about what do we think? Yeah? People think about wool being itchy, scratchy, just a warm product. Yeah, difficult to care for. Really difficult. Let's stay away from that. I want something easy. It's important to do ways to deliver the modern consumer fabulous wool products that enhanced and embodied the natural, sustainable and health-giving qualities of hand-picked wool. The drive to deliver the best product possible allowed us to improve the price the farmers paid for that wool. That is at the heart of the wool room. Now, it is bizarre for me as a retailer to stand here to say, I want to pay more for the product. When we talk about meat prices, we talk about milk prices. But actually we do. We really do. Because actually it creates a sustainable pipeline for all concerned. And we know, because we've heard lots today about the benefits that that can drive. And that's a little bit about the link, about where we can fit in to this journey ongoing. I wanted to share a little bit about the journey that we've gone on. We haven't been going very long. 2008, Joe had that vision. A part of the wider H. Dawson group. H. Dawson is a long-standing, founded by Joe's great-grandfather. He's fourth generation. They buy and sell wools. They source wools from around the world and put that into different uses. That's the primary business. But as Joe quite rightly saw, the wool industry, and I think somebody referred to that, the biggest issue is actually the industry itself, is really underselling the features and benefits of this most amazing fibre. It really is absolutely incredible what it can do. It's been around us for thousands of years. And that was the vision of the wool room. The wool room was designed to really put out there these amazing products that existed, but really people didn't know about, and to start re-educating the consumer about actually how amazing wool was. And we are really the interface with the consumer and the producer at the back end. I joined in 2012. My background was homewares. Historically I've worked in the bed industry. Before that I worked in furnishing fabrics, so a textile industry. I'm actually a Lancashire boy originally, and who's crossed the border into wool. So into the Yorkshire world. So many would probably say I've crossed the line. But I find textiles just the most, and particularly natural textiles, the most amazing thing. And I think wool is probably by far and away beyond any out there. It is really the most amazing fibre. And I just loved Joe's vision. I loved what the business really stood for, and I saw what it could really do in terms of having this impact, not only at the front end and changing the way that consumers can live, but also at the back end and the way that we can influence the farmer and the producer. And that was really the original bit. So in 2012, we had a long, hard look at the business and said, what do we need to do? And part of that, some people know it as multi-channel, some people know it as omni-channel. I think that's the modern term. But you need to look at the different touch points of the business. Where is the consumer going? How are they shopping? So as we all know, bricks and mortar retail is very difficult. The traditional shopping routes, going onto the high street, not helped by business rates, not helped by high rents. Yeah, and of course, this modern technology, what's in front of us? Yeah, iPads, phones, accessibility to information very quickly. The world has changed very, very quickly. So consumers, from old to young, are now accessing information from their armchairs, wherever they may be. And they can do that research and they can buy. And the expectation in terms of speed of response and speed of information means that the world has changed. But we are great believers that we've got this amazing fibre. Yeah, we've got something that's a little bit different in terms of wool sleep systems that you need to touch and feel or try. And hence why the omni-channel. So we embarked on a route of opening retail stores, completely counterintuitive post credit crunch, absolutely counterintuitive, because we wanted to give people the opportunity to go and experience and see and feel something a little bit different, which was our products, all made of lovely, lovely British wool. In 2014, we had a wider remit, and Joe's original vision, and I think it still stands, is all these different rooms of the house, there are amazing products that are made out of wool from around the world. And our vision is still to be able to provide and sell those to the consumer, taking it right the way back, knowing where it's come from, turning these amazing products into something. But what we really saw as a business was what was resonating was healthy sleep. And it's a little bit like Caroline's sort of, people have got problems in terms of, the diet, digestion, allergies, etc. And we saw a little bit the same. What was really resonating was that an awful lot of people were struggling to sleep well. And I'll come on to that a little bit more. And that's why we really turned the focus into delivering the very best natural healthy sleep. And that's what we stand for today. So being very snake-eyed and saying, okay, how can we maximize our business? How can we maximize this amazing natural fibre that exists all around us, comes from all over the UK, and really turn it into something that can change somebody's life? And that's when sort of the light bulbs really went on. And we've seen a significant growth in the business from then. One of the challenges we faced was people with allergies, dust mite allergies, asthma, massive increase in the last 20, 30 years. And I'll touch a little bit more on that. So we said, we need to prove. Everybody says wool. So interestingly, nobody mentioned about allergies and wool. So a little bit about lanolin. So just so you know, lanolin, 0.03% of people have an allergy to lanolin. Some do, and it's a very bad one, but it's very rare. So allergies to wool, invariably, is the prickle. Yeah, using too coarse a wool direct to the skin and somebody's skin being too sensitive. And that is considered an allergy. It's not actually, it's just a reaction to the barbs or the scales on the fibre and using too coarse a wool. So we wanted to prove that. And in 2014, we obtained the Allergy UK seal of approval. So with Allergy UK, we tested wool. I challenged the industry. When I came into the industry always said, yes, it's naturally hyperallergenic, it does all of these things. I said, where's the proof? Didn't exist. So we went out and did it. And we've blown the whole allergy world apart in terms of the results. I'll come back to that. 2015, again, extending the whole sleep system, we launched the first chemical-free mattress range, all made of British wool. And indeed using wool in the outer fabric of the mattress. Now nobody mentioned here that, did you know that wool is naturally flame retardant? But nobody mentioned it. It's quite interesting. It's a natural feature. It's very, very difficult to burn because of the volume of nitrogen in the product. It has a significantly higher melting point than many, many other fibres. So it singes, it doesn't melt. I don't know whether anybody saw any of the press recently on Armadillo, company based in Leicestershire, making sort of base layers, supplying into the SAS. Yeah. I don't know whether anybody knows, but from a gunshot wound, if invariably what often kills somebody is the leaching of the fibres from where the bullet actually enters the body and the scorching around that, and it's therefore the leaching of that fibres into the bloodstream that can actually kill somebody. With wool, it doesn't scorch. So what they found is that actually by wearing a natural base layer, not only does it not smell, so you can use it for days and days and days, it's far more comfortable in terms of regulate your temperature, but also there's very significant reasons. So there's amazing applications of this natural fibre. But chemical-free mattresses. Did you know that 99% of all mattresses, probably guaranteed, almost everybody here is sleeping on a mattress with a brominated flame retardant just underneath the cover? Yeah. Partly because government legislation in 1988 changed and said because of house fires, we need to flame retard all our furniture, all our mattresses. And the natural way, of course, is to take a fabric and we will treat it with something so it doesn't allow it to burn. So we use wool to create a chemical-free mattress. Just using 1/3 of wool in the top layer of that fabric is enough to pass even the test for commercial applications like hotels. And it's all around us. 2016, we opened our 5th and 6th stores. Axminster, our sister company is Axminster Carpets. So we have a logical sort of connection down in that part of the world, and also Marlow, close to London. Very interestingly, the southeast, wealth belt, more money, so premium product, but also it's significantly warmer. And therein lies the secret in terms of why we opened in Marlow. About 5 degrees warmer, 6 degrees warmer than up here. So temperature, certainly in the summer months, becomes a major issue in terms of sleeping. And what do people seek out? A solution to temperature regulation. What's the biggest fibre that's capable of doing that? Wool. We all think it's a warm product. It's incredibly cooling. And I'm delighted 3 weeks ago, we entered the Rural Business Awards, which is the 2nd year of running this. And this recognises businesses that have the biggest impact on the rural community. And we entered the Best Apparel and Accessories brand, and delighted to say we won, which was just fantastic. So real recognition of the work that's going on in terms of taking wool, British wool, and turning it into things that really can change people's lives. A little poetic license. If we could be bottled, wool would probably be the best fibre in the world, and it really can. And this is our mission. I've talked quite a lot about sleep. As you'll gather, we are absolutely passionate in delivering sleep. The third of our life that we try and spend asleep. And it's all about the link into health and well-being. And I think that's the critical thing. So we talk as a business about sleep. We don't talk about wool. Wool can have a lot of negative connotations because of historic changes in our society and what we believe and see. When we start talking about health and well-being and the changes that we can affect, and we see wool as like the intel inside. It's the very clever bit that can do all of these things that can change somebody's life. And hence, we talk about influencing health and well-being and delivering the very best natural and sustainable sleep solutions. And that's what we're about. Let's talk about sleep. Biggest issues in terms of we did a survey 2 years ago, and I think 36 to 40% of all respondents said they struggled to sleep in the manner that they would like to sleep. That is significant. Significant. The two biggest issues, the first one was heat. Too hot in bed or too cold in bed. Yeah? And often the survey also included between two different partners. Major issue. Now, if you think about traditional sleep solutions, yeah, we use down, feather, polyester, microfiber, both polyester-based. Yeah, down and feather on a bird for a reason, largely to keep them warm, to insulate. So great as a keeping warm product, and hence everybody knows TOG ratings, don't you, for a duvet? You have 4 TOG, which is a summer weight, 10 TOG, which is a medium, 13 TOG, which is a winter weight. And they are a finite recognition of thermal resistance. So they're finite. So what happens if you're sleeping slightly warmer one night, or the temperature's slightly warmer, or your partner's really hot, yeah, and giving off all that heat your way? It can't adapt. There's no flexibility. So hence why we throw off the duvet, or kick the duvet off, or hit our partner, or whatever it may be, you know, sort of saying, cool down, yeah? These are all very real problems that happen every day. And of course, a lot of people just put up with it and say, oh, it's just the way it is. But actually, you don't need to. And if we come back to how we used to sleep on fleeces, under fleeces. Yeah. I think it was made mention that in the 13th and 14th century, that the power of this great country was built on the value of the first great commodity, which was wool. All our great Norman churches, a lot of the great market towns, we live in one in Stamford, which is absolutely the heart of wool in the eastern side. If you go to Suffolk and Norfolk, there is a greater density there of churches than anywhere else in the country because of the Flemish trade that used to exist. Wool was the first great commodity. And it was recognised that it would do these most amazing things. I could wear it, it would regulate my temperature. 100% wool suit versus a blend. How much better does it regulate temperature? Sleeping on and sleeping under wool. Yeah, all of those things are really, really important. But the science also exists that says if you sleep on and sleep under wool, you will get 25% deeper, more regenerative sleep. How does that work? To bore you excessively, has everybody washed a wool jumper? Yeah? Yeah, and we shrunk it as well, I know. But you've washed a wool jumper. How heavy is it when it comes out the wash? Really heavy, isn't it? It's absorbed moisture. It's like a sponge. So wool will absorb round about 30 to 33% of its own weight in water before becoming saturated, so before it becomes dripping. Yeah? Any idea polyester? 0. Down and feather? 5, well done. Cotton, which we think is really breathable, don't we? 8 to 10. Yeah. So wool is 3 times more effective than cotton in terms of absorption and desorption of moisture. And the wool is like a sponge. So it absorbs and then desorbs moisture. It's thermoregulatory. So if I use a wool duvet, it will be totally dry by the time, so it's desorbed back to its original state, probably 2 hours into your day. It is, and I'll link that into the whole allergy benefits. So it is very, very, very close. It takes a long time if it's fully saturated, absolutely, because we all know how long a wool jumper takes to dry. Yeah. So you imagine what's going on in terms of the bedding environment. And this is where the 25% deeper, more regenerative sleep comes in. Is we're giving off half a litre to a litre of moisture each a night into our bedding. It's horrible, isn't it? Yeah. That's swilling around. So under an insulator, it can't go anywhere. Polyester, it's just trapped Down and feather a little bit can leach out. Yeah, cotton a little bit more. Wool, it's absorbed into the fibres, away from the body. Skin likes to be around about 50% moisture content. Yeah, anything greater than that, we start sweating, perspiring. We start perspiring, it sends a signal to the brain saying, I need to cool down. And needed to cool down could be throwing back the duvet, could be sticking your leg out of the duvet, if we use the analogy at night. Wool, it maintains that. It absorbs it away from the skin, maintains it. And hence why our stage 4 or 5 sleeps. Anybody wake up between 2 and 5 in the morning because they're too hot? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very common. Yeah, and it's because of that stage 4 and stage 5 sleep, that's invariably that phase, which is your deep regenerative phase, where the body is shutting down, slowing down, and regenerating itself. So making sure you've got that vitality and refreshed the next day. And what's happening is you get woken up, because invariably your body is reaching to a temperature which says, I need to cool down, and you're woken up out of that phase. So you're not getting the same level of deep regenerative sleep, which is the stage 4 and stage 5 part of your sleep cycle. And that's where that comes from. And that research has sort of existed. We also did some interesting work at Leeds University in 2015. So we wanted to prove this as well. Why were our customers telling us that when they got a wool bedding or wool duvet, they slept like they've never slept before? So consumers are selling us that on the phone. And we sort of thought, we need to try and find out. And that's when we embarked on working with Leeds University. And they've got something called a sweating hot plate, which replicates somebody perspiring at night. It's lovely. And how that moisture is transported away from the body and through the product. And the results were really quite confounding. You know, we could transport 67% more using wool than feather and down, and 47% more than polyester. Significant. And that really sort of answered the question that actually it's not necessarily about heat, it's often about humidity in and around the sleep mechanism. And this is all down to wool. What it also does is it recognizes the individual sleeper. So you could have one hot, one cold, and it will react naturally to the individuals. Now the question is, why on earth didn't we really know about this before? Well, we have. It's coming back full circle. Anybody remember wool blankets? Our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents used to put a wool blanket on the mattress and have wool blankets above. Wool blanket on the mattress was like a mattress protector. It's odorless, it's antibacterial, it kept the bed fresh and clean. Yeah? The wool blankets regulated temperature. So you talk to great-grandparents and grandparents, they would know all about this. And all we're doing is repackaging something that's existed for years. The other great demand is allergies. We've all thought that putting hard floors down gets rid of allergies, will improve, move away from wool carpet. Probably one of the biggest issues for the British wool industry and for the farmer and the value of wool has been the move to wood floors and far less carpet being used. Carpet traditionally was very largely wool-based, if not 100% wool-based, and has gradually moved to 80-20 and then 50-50 and then less, enough into polypropylenes. Of course, it's not recyclable, it's not biodegradable in the same degree, but there's also great belief that actually wool has a major impact in terms of the dust particles and indeed the trigger mechanisms that cause things like house dust mite allergies and indeed asthma. So Sweden, which is the home of hard floors, you would think that asthma had actually reduced over the last 30 years. They've actually seen a 300% increase. The German Asthma Society have done a lot of work in this area and said actually that the dust particles that are considered the right quantity in an area of that you're breathing in were twice the legal requirement with hard flooring than with carpet. So the belief actually is coming full circle back to saying actually we should be really putting wool carpet down and locking those fibres and those dust particles away and then vacuuming regularly as a way of actually improving. We're coming back full circle, which is quite amazing. But link that into the world that we're in, which is sleep. The single biggest thing that people are saying is wool naturally hypoallergenic? And yes, it is. And talking about moisture, it comes back to moisture again. And house dust mites very nastily live off dead skin and moisture. Those two things. We give off skin naturally as we sleep in bed at night. Can't remove that, can't eliminate that. But what we can do is eliminate the moisture element. So under traditional bedding types, at down, feather, synthetic, they're trapped. Moisture is trapped, and the combination of the two creates the food source for the dust mite. The dust mite will colonise. So you take a new product to full colonisation is 6 weeks. Horrid. Yeah. After 6 months, probably in the region of 10 to 20% of your pillow will be house dust mites and house dust mites excrement. Yeah, lovely. So what does wool do? Wool absorbs and desorbs. So talking about your comment there about going back to a dry state, what we proved with Allergy UK over a 6-week period, which is the known period that dust mites will fully colonise the product, is that we can completely eliminate house dust mites from your product. So your back duvet, your pillow, your mattress protector, your mattress topper, within that period of time, starting with live dust mites, starting with dust mite excrement called DERP1, which is the bit that triggers asthma and dust mite allergies, and it's completely antibacterial and antifungal. No chemicals, no washing, all through nature. So it's blown Allergy UK apart in terms of their thinking of taking up carpets and replacing putting barriers all over your mattresses, etc., with horrible plasticizers, and suddenly thinking there is a natural solution here. And it's coming back to what we do, which is wool. So for the first time, there is now a natural solution for allergy cells. So those with house dust mite allergies, those who are concerned about asthma, which is 100% natural British wool. We're the first people and the only people to hold this natural allergy in the UK seal of approval. No chemicals, no washing, just through nature. And of course, one of the aims is we want to expand that. We want to move that on. We want to move that into mattresses. We want to move that into beds. So we believe that has. I talked a little bit about this, and I think it's very relevant to what we've talked about today. But there's no doubt that by living with wool, you'll live healthier. Did you know that wool will naturally absorb any formaldehyde within the room within 3 to 4 hours and lock it away for the life of the product? Wow. We've got flat pack furniture from IKEA, for example. Yeah? Formaldehyde is carcinogenic. Yeah? But there's also other natural occurring VOCs, volatile organic compounds. You may well have seen in the press, there's quite a few, nitrogen oxide, sulfur dioxide, factories, perfumes, boilers, all these things. Decaffeinated coffee, paint, yeah. All of those things can be naturally locked away by putting down wool carpet, at the very worst, 100% wool rug. It's like an air humidifier. It does it naturally. Have we ever thought before air conditioning why our museums were lined with wool on the walls? Anybody thought about that? Because it naturally absorbs and desorbs, it regulates humidity to protect the artifacts. It's now done obviously through technology. Humidity control. One of the best things that one can do in terms of children's rooms, particularly where they're very newly born, their immune system hasn't developed, is lay wool carpet, have a natural wool mattress, have natural wool bedding, yeah, and put them in something natural, yeah, with no flat pack furniture. So that's one of the best things that one can do. And what we're doing is going back to nature. I think we've touched on the environment. I'm going to skip on that because I've done quite a lot about that. It doesn't need to cost you the earth. We've worked out that somebody who would buy a polyester duvet, £30 polyester duvet, yeah, will probably buy 4 or 5 in the time that they buy a wool duvet. It will cost them around about 40p per night over the life, their 20-year life, let's say. To give you the equivalent of a wool duvet, it costs you 20p. So half the price. So we think about it being expensive, and the original outlay might be a little bit more expensive, but actually the longer term gain is it's actually significantly cheaper. And it all ties in going back to thinking about the price we want to pay. We're not scared about trying to pay, ask for a slightly higher price. Yeah? Our challenge is actually, and probably something like Caroline's challenge is, how do we get mainstream consumer UK understanding that they need to buy wool bedding and not polyester and down and feather? rather than those that come to us with a problem about temperature control or allergies. It's actually the mainstream, and that's our biggest challenge that we face in talking to the consumer. And that's a big, big marketing challenge. But I think it starts here. Yeah, and I always one of the questions I ask is, do we think about what we buy, what we sleep under? Yeah? And we're talking about holistic management, but actually it goes beyond that. It's thinking about what we eat. And I certainly go away thinking, gosh, I need to change the way I need to eat and what I put into my body. And I think the same should go about what we live around, what we put around us, what we put on the floor, what we sleep on. We should really challenge that and say, when that time comes to potentially upgrade or change, should we be thinking about that? The next question is really food for thought, because we're at the front end, we're talking to the consumer. A lot of what we talked about today, I think, is the chain, is how can we get from producer to consumer in a far less complicated, challenging and easy way that potentially can take waste out of that chain. Now at the moment, we will buy through the British Wool Marketing Board, and we turn it into something that hopefully can change people's lives. And it's quite a short chain, but there's still complications in that. We at the moment actually don't know where our wool, absolutely categorically know all the individual farms where our wool comes from. Now surely that's one way to get to the consumer, isn't it? Is being able to sell that provenance. Like we buy our food, we want to know where it's come from, we want to know what's gone into it. Should we not be thinking about that? Could the wool room be that link in terms of wool production, that byproduct at the moment that is seen by many sometimes a bit of a hassle, but actually could land quite a serious revenue stream in the future? Be the link between the producer or the farmer and the consumer. Can the seller and the producer work together to deliver greater sustainability and environmental change? There's no doubt about it. I would love to be buying from holistically managed farms where I know where it's come from, where I know those farmers are managing their land, improving it for the future, and telling that story to a consumer that they're sleeping under something that the users will has that effect. They feel good about that as well. It's doing the right thing. Could we source from holistically managed farms in the way that meat potentially is being done? Our wool, quite complex. Yeah, we've got to sort and grade. We've got to manage the route that goes into, because every fleece can be different. Every animal, every breed it goes into different uses. But I think these are the sort of questions we've got to think for the future. Is somewhere like the wool room, which is the high street destination for these products that are derived from these amazingly developing and futuristic sort of thoughts on farming, and take it to the consumer. In other words, what I'm saying is we've got an outlet here. We're talking to that consumer, and it's quite a short pipeline, but it could be shorter. What in the future, if we're profitable, and significantly profitable in the future, could we put a share of that back to develop holistically managed farms? So we've got this circular vision where we can develop more and more and more and more, which then goes into that belief. That's where I think it could be absolutely fantastic. But what we need is we've got the here and now. We've got to start really, walking the talk. So the world that we're in needs to start thinking about where we buy and what we buy. We can do a job in terms of trying to convince the consumer, but we've all got to start with it. We also think about, I'll probably have to leave it at home. How can I live with that? That's the type of it's like the leather. Do we know where the leather's come from? And it's all those sort of decisions that I know are really difficult, and it's not an instant change, but it starts now. That's me. That's the wool room. Thank you very much for your attention. Hopefully, it's given you an insight into a very different world, and one that can link back to the world we've been talking about.